Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Wisdom Wednesday, the first one in the month of June. If you tuned in last week, you know that you didn't see me. You saw Diana and Tracy filling in for me. I was off watching my middle son graduate from college last Wednesday up in Connecticut. So I was up in Yankee Land, and I had one graduate from high school on Monday, and 24 hours later, middle son graduate from college. So supposedly I'm getting a raise. We'll see about that. But anyway, congratulations to both of them. And thank you, Tracy and Diana, for putting on a very informative Wisdom Wednesday last week. Got a couple of really great comments, including mine, saying I think I better look for another job because people would rather listen to them and look at them than at me. But anyway, we're going to have some fun. As you know, that every month for 2 years now, we've had a new theme. And the theme for this month, what does that look like? A pause button. We're doing press pause because. Now that seems a little weird. Why on earth would we come up with that motto at this time of the year? Well, as you know, numbers have been going down from the coronavirus to levels that haven't been this low in a year, since before the holidays, when they were definitely spiking up, and continued to through last summer, after Memorial Weekend and after 4th of July, and then again when schools started or tried to start and pretty quickly shut down after that. And then at the holidays, of course, we all know what happened. But because of the vaccinations and maybe a little bit of herd immunity starting to take over, the numbers are plummeting to lowest levels practically since before last March. So that's great news. People are walking around with no masks all over downtown Austin. While I was up in Massachusetts, which I went back up to Boston after the graduation, since I'd shot the week already anyway. I visited with some dental lab friends of mine up there that I've worked with for 25 years. Hello, John and Larry Brooks. Thank y'all for helping us give people beautiful smiles over the last 25 years. And we saw the same thing going on in Massachusetts. In fact, even Massachusetts, which was pretty well shut down as of Monday, Memorial Day, the governor lifted the mask mandate there. So it's voluntary to wear a mask unless you've got comorbidities or some other health issues that they ask that you continue to. But if you've been vaccinated, then the CDC is even saying now, as of this week anyway, that it's safe to go without a mask, especially outdoors. So here we go as we get freedom. But again,
press pause because.
Why would we come up with press pause? Well, I think it's a good time right now that things are starting to open back up to stop and think and look back and reflect on what we've just been through. Craziest year and a half in my 67 years on this planet. Probably you'd have a hard time coming up with something that was even crazier. And as we go through these transitions, first to learning how to live with being quarantined, to now coming out of quarantine, several psychologist patients of mine and I have had these comments as they've been in the office that people are having just as difficult a time coming out of it as they did going into it. There was a lot of depression and anxiety on the front end, but now people have kind of gotten used to that after a year, and they're having a little difficulty transitioning back. And if you remember, a year ago, I did a whole month on laughter and frivolity and just finding something to find humorous on there's this thing called YouTube that's on the end of pretty much everybody's arm on your cell phone that you can go to, or on your computer, and all you got to do is type in funny videos. You'll get more than a week's worth of videos if you watch them 24/7. Some pretty hilarious ones, and I recommended a few of my favorites for people to just take a break for 10 minutes and laugh. So we're going to talk about laughter today. There actually was a professor at Stanford back in 1964, Dr. William Fry, who decided, he was a professor of psychology, and he decided he was going to dedicate the rest of his career to laughter and its effect on human beings. And he actually came up with this term, gelontology. It's based on the Greek word gelos, G-E-L-O-S. that stands for laughter or frivolity. And he became the first world's gelotologist. And sounds kind of like Jello, the instant pudding, but no, he was a gelotologist, and he spent the rest of his career writing and researching how laughter affected people. And what they found back in 1964 was that it dropped cortisol levels and epinephrine levels in people's bodies, and it raised some of the good things like their immune systems, their killer cells, which are the cells in our immune system that go looking for cancer cells and attack them and kill them off before they can take hold in our body. So a lot of good effects. I'm more familiar with Norman Cousins, who back in the 80s, I read his book called Anatomy of an Illness. It kind of hit the medical and dental profession by storm. This guy was not in the medical industry. He was a journalist. He was an editor for the New York Post, which was well known back in the 70s and 80s. He traveled all over the world. And in the early 80s, he was on a tarmac in Russia, because back then, especially transatlantic flights with tourists, they didn't have fancy modern terminals that people walk straight onto the airplane. You had to stand out on the runway, wait for your plane to land, and then they roll the little stairway up like the president gets up and down on Air Force One, and you walked in that way. Well, they're standing out on the tarmac. He's in his 50s at the time, and a 747 took off and blew its exhaust right on them as it was taking off while they're waiting for their plane. 2 months later, he's in the hospital in New York. They could not diagnose what was wrong. His immune system was shutting down. All his organs were shutting down. All they do is tell him, we don't know how to fix you. We put you on antibiotics. We've put you on steroids. You have an undiagnosed terminal illness. Well, he was unwilling to accept that. What he found out while he was in the hospital is if he tuned in to Charlie Chaplin, the Laurel and Hardy, the funny things, funny stuff on TV, slapstick humor, that he would, if he laughed hard for 30 minutes, he would sleep well for 2 hours without pain relievers. And he took himself off pain relievers, moved into a hotel room across the street from the hotel, hired his own private nurses to come take care of him, and he laughed himself back to health. And he got so intrigued with that he wrote that book called Anatomy of an Illness. You can look up the short version or the videos of it. He's passed away now, but he was on the medical faculty at several medical schools over the next 20 years, teaching these soon-to-be doctors about how laughter affects the human body and how it raises good things in your body and lowers the bad things in your body, reduces stress. So there's a lot of evidence to back that up, gerontology. So look it up, or just go to YouTube, skip those steps, take my word for it, go to YouTube, hit funny videos, you'll find something pretty quickly. Chris Rock is a friend, is a favorite of mine. If you're really into the old comedy, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, those are all, you cannot go through one of their comedy routines without finding something to laugh about. Watch a funny movie. We all know we've got ones in our brain. So what this Stanford professor found is that if you laughed 100 times a day, it had the same effect on your body as spending 10 minutes on a rowing machine. That's hard to believe, but which would you rather do? I know my own self, I'd rather laugh 100 times a day than to spend 10 minutes on one of those stupid rowing machines. So you make your own choices, but find a reason to laugh. Go find something funny on the internet, and or just look around you. People driving in their car alone with the mask on and the windows rolled up, especially in Texas this time of year when we're getting up into the 90s. Makes me chuckle. So find something to laugh about, heal yourself, make yourself happy. It'll elevate your mood. It'll help all kinds of things. My health tip, I always give a health tip, is stay hydrated, because we're getting up into the 90s here in Austin, Texas, and summer is coming. We all think that we're hydrated because we're not thirsty. Well, there's a range in there in the middle where you think you're doing fine, but 10 minutes out in the sun and you'll get your mouth dried out. So we're all just a little bit above dehydrated. So drink lots of water, keep yourself hydrated, stay safe, laugh, and
Press pause because
Press pause because. And have a good week. We'll have another version of Press Pause Because next week. See you then.